Pig and Whistle Tales from Azeroth. As always here at the Pig and Whistle Inn in Stormwind, I go through a variety of subjects with regards to World of Warcraft. So grab a bottle or a pint, sit back and enjoy. Today we're going to be going over what is the best class in WoW. And there is obviously a lot that sort of goes into what makes the best class, what is the best class and stuff like that. But we're going to be taking it from very multiple viewpoints in terms of how much crowd control each sort of class has, the damage that they can output, the flexibility, survivability, all of that sort of things will be taken into account. And this will be my very own opinion because, well, everyone's going to have a different opinion. Mages might think rogues are OP. Demon hunters might think death knights are OP or something. Druids might think that monks are OP, even though monks definitely are OP. But yeah, we'll start, obviously, as always, with the weekly stuff. So we have the world bosses for this week, which are Mortanis, Morgeth, and Antros. Each of them drops their own loot, different conduits and anima. So make sure you head on over there, get all of them for the extra anima and stuff like that. The brawl for this week is Deep 6. This is, I'm pretty sure it's the 6v6 one, if I'm not going crazy. And there's only certain battlegrounds, I believe it's Warsong Gulch, Temple of Kotmogu and stuff like that. And the weekly event for this week is Arena Skirmishes. So you're earning extra honor by participating in arenas and stuff like that. So, best classes in WoW. Where do we start? So, we'll start with, a mage. Mage have very high crowd control. They have multiple uses of crowd control, polymorph, Ring of Frost. They have Dragon's Breath. They have, I think that's it. I'm trying to think if there's more. They're the main sort of CCs that a mage has. They have a load of roots and stuff like that as well, with Frost Nova and etc. So they have insane amount of crowd control. The damage that they can output. Now, each different specialization will obviously have a different amount of damage output that they can put. I'm going to be taking these from a PvP perspective and seeing it from that sort of angle rather than a mythic perspective, because if you look at it from a mythic or a PvE perspective, you're looking at completely different numbers and a completely different sort of list in terms of what makes the best class in WoW. So I'm going to go with a PvP perspective, as I am more comfortable in that sort of area of expertise within WoW. So, mage's damage is substantial. It's very bad when there are no cooldowns up. But when you press a mage's cooldowns, a big cooldown, Icy Veins, or Combustion, or Arcane Power, or whatever, their damage can skyrocket. And it's like, it goes from 0 to 100 really quickly. Like, instantaneous, it's insane. So, their damage is very good, but only in small windows, small burst windows. Apart from that, they are mostly utilised for their CC capabilities. Flexibility, there isn't much flexibility in terms of you can't heal other people. You do have very good sort of peeling for other people. We call it peeling. You peel for your teammates if they're getting run down by the enemy team. So, because you have a great and abundant amount of CC, you obviously can do a lot of peeling off of your teammates and on yourself. So there is a bit of flexibility in that regard. Survivability, they are very tanky. They have a lot of maneuverability, or mobility, I should say, sorry. And yeah, they are generally tanky. They have immunities like Ice Block. They have they have shields, they have mobility, they have quite a bit that can keep them alive. Now, let's look at Warrior. Warrior, on the other hand, CC-wise, crowd control-wise, they have about 2, maybe 3. They have 1 slow, they have 1 stun, and they have 1 fear, I believe. Trying to think if there's any more. That's about it from what I know anyway. They might have a different one if you're playing like Protection Warrior. You might have like Shockwave as well and stuff like that, but I'm not really counting that as much. Warrior CC isn't what gives the class its, the power level that it is. Um, Warrior is very much damage and flexibility and sort of helping the team. You can utilize the warrior very well. The damage is very good. It's very consistent. It's when you are bursting, like when you press your cooldowns, your damage goes up, but it's not to the extent where a mage's damage will go from 0 to 100. You'll go from about sort of 80% to 100%, that sort of thing. So you feel the damage increase, but it's not so much that people are going, okay, we just need to survive this one cooldown, because warrior damage is very consistent and very reliable. Flexibility, you can be used as you can be a utility class. You have loads of stuff to help out teammates. You have intervene, which will basically make you take the damage instead of your teammate. You have rallying cry, you have war banners, you have disarms, you have slows, you have just a constant damage output. Is very underrated, because if you're outputting quite a bit of damage, then the enemy team are sort of thinking, hold on, what's happening here? We need to be careful and just play a little bit more defensively. Survivability, now warriors can be very durable. They obviously wear plate, so melees have a harder time actually doing damage to the class. You have some big cooldowns such as Enrage Regen for Fury, Die by the Sword for Warrior or Arms Warriors. Rallying Cry, like I said, can be used for teammates also. And, you have passive sort of defensive stance if you're an Arms Warrior and stuff like that. So you have quite a bit of survivability. So you are a very good class all around, to be honest. Hunter. Now, Hunter CC is very good. You can get it quite consistently, such as Freezing Trap, Scatter Shot, Intimidation Stun. You can quite more often than not land these forms of CC. Damage-wise, Hunters are currently outputting quite a lot of damage, I would say. Their damage is one of the highest in the game, but it depends on the spec that you are playing. If you're playing Marksman, it is very much burst damage. If you're playing Beast Mastery, it is a lot of consistent damage coming from both the Hunter and the pets and stuff like that. So it is very high damage right now, and that is good. That is, well, good in some ways, bad in others. But in terms of best class in WoW, it is very good at outputting a lot of damage. Flexibility-wise, there isn't much that they can do to support their team. You have maybe Roar Sacrifice if you're in PvP. But apart from that, you have one slow, or two, actually, Concussion Shot and Tar Trap. And there's not much more that you can do to support any sort of team. You don't have much flexibility in terms of what you can do or mixing it up, your sort of play style, I imagine. The only sort of flexibility you have is changing specializations. Survivability. Hunters have some of the best, or some survival in the game. Feigned Death being one of the best things that you have in the game currently, as it removes all spells, magics and stuff like that on you. I'm not sure if it does bleeds, I'm pretty sure it doesn't, but you have that, and it gives you a shield, it gives you multiple things, and you have Turtle, which is a immunity, kind of. If you have dots on you, they will still tick down your HP, but you are immune to anything else after you have pressed your Turtle. You have a heal, so you're quite durable, but I think a Hunter's best attribute right now is the damage and the crowd control that they bring. Rogue, they are masters of crowd control. They're kind of like Mage. This is why Mage and Rogue go hand in hand when it comes to any sort of arena. Rogue is all about crowd control. You can stun 3 targets so that your Mage can polymorph. You have Blind, you have Sap, you have Gouge for Outlaw Rogue, you have Cheap Shot, Kidney Shot, you have anything else? You probably do, but I'm probably forgetting it. I don't play a rogue, so, it's tough to remember what they sort of have. All I know is what their sort of damage cooldowns are. Damage on, speaking of damage, I should say, their damage is relatively good right now, especially if you've got an Assassination Rogue with tier sets. Now, their damage can go through the roof with the amount of poison damage that they're pumping out right now, especially in arenas. It is very frightening. their damage has scaled since the latest patch, and it's quite good to see, but it isn't. Because rogues have always been kind of meh in terms of damage, but because they have so much crowd control, that makes up in that sort of bracket. Now what we're seeing is the damage on the rogue mix with the amount of crowd control that they have, and it is deadly. This is why in AWC, the arena tournaments, you see a lot of rogue mage priest, because rogues got insanely buffed in terms of damage, and holy priests are a massive sort of component in that composition, because the amount of heals that they can output and stuff like that, but we'll get to priests later. So their damage is fairly decent, and it's nothing to be overlooked at. Flexibility-wise, again, you can't really mix up the playstyles a lot. You're there to disrupt the team, sort of have everything on sort of a crowd control, and you're dictating the pace of the game. Survivability, you can be targeted. You are quite squishy. You have a few ways of dealing with things: Cloak of Shadows, Evasion, and Vanish. Apart from that, these are your three main tools. You are quite a squishy target and very vulnerable to being killed. So they are quite bad in terms of their survivability, but they do have big cooldowns in order to use them, to survive. Priest. Now, like I said, Priest is very much a key component in Rogue Mage Priest, and they've been going up recently, Priests. And their crowd control isn't the best. They have obviously a couple forms of CC. They have Mind Control, they have Fear, they have Chastise Stun if you are a Holy Priest, and you have a Silence if you're a Shadow Priest. Now, their CC can be very good if chained together, as none of it has a DR on itself. But damage that they output is very lacking right now. Now, obviously, the only damage that they can output for their DPS specialization is Shadow, and that damage is very much lacking compared to the amount of damage that, say, an Assassination Rogue does, or a Demon Hunter, or a Paladin, Warrior, etc. It is very much lacking in that regard. The flexibility, though, is where it more than makes up for it. So, the flexibility, you can change your playstyle to whatever. You can change it to, you want to go all out with damage, I wouldn't recommend it, but sure, you can go for it. You can do a supportive role for your team. You can do sort of a off healer role, stuff like that. But the flexibility that you have and the amount of utility that you have on this class is through the roof. It is absolutely insane. You have Leap of Faith, you have Shadow Mend for heals, you have Void Shift for Shadow Priests, you have Guardian for Holy, you have Pain Suppression. Your utility as a Shadow Priest is absolutely insane. Symbol of Hope to get some mana back and get people's cooldowns active again. It's absolutely insane. The survivability of Priests is generally quite good. You have Fade for multiple occasions. You have Pain Suppression if you're a Disc Priest. You have Desperate Prayer. You have multiple different ways of answering what the enemy throw at you. So their survivability isn't bad, but they can be squishy as they are only a cloth class. Warlocks. Their crowd control lacks. They only have a Fear, really, and a Stun if you're a Demonology Warlock. Their damage right now is scaling high. Really high. So you're seeing a lot of Destruction Warlocks come into the arena scene right now. That is very good. To be honest, I'm surprised there's not been a lot more Demolocks, Demonology Warlocks, because their damage is very consistent, but it is very much, when the damage is going to happen, that kind of thing with the Demon Bolts. But their damage is currently going up and up constantly each week, and their damage is through the roof right now. That is what is putting Warlock on this sort of on the up climb, as it were. Flexibility, again, you're not going to be mixing it up a lot. You're very much a stationary caster. You don't have much flexibility in terms of how you CC or how you peel for people. You can't heal. You don't have Leap of Faith and stuff like that. So you're not as flexible as some other classes. Survivability-wise, you are very tanky. You have Dark Pact, which is a 1 minute cooldown, and it gives you like a 60,000 like health shield, and that's on top of your like 90,000 health. I came up against a Warlock today that had 94,000 health on my Boomkin. I'm sat there at 73,000. He has 20,000 more HP than me. And this is without any sort of priest buff or any sort of battle masters or anything like that. He was just loaded on health and it was insane. But yeah, your survivability is good. You're relatively tanky and you have quite a fair amount of mobility with your demonic gate, your teleports and stuff like that. But their damage is definitely what brings them up the ladder in terms of being a best class right now. Paladin, CC is very much lacking. They have maybe 2 forms of CC, if not 1. The main one being Hammer of Justice, which is a very good stun if you can utilize it correctly. Their damage right now is very, very good. It is very, very good. It's very bursty, but once you're out of the cooldowns, it's kind of meh. It doesn't really matter. But the burst damage, a lot of people favour it over, saying, the more consistent damage, as they can set it up easier. Flexibility, you are quite flexible in terms of you have a lot of off healing, you have a lot of utility with your bubbles and sort of your holy ward sanctuaries, your sacrifices and blessings and stuff like that. So you can be very flexible and be utilised for your teammates. Survivability, you are quite squishy and you generally the target if you're in an arena setting, but you have a lot of means to survive. You have heals for yourself, you have bubbles, you have Cavalier to run away and kite, you have freedom, you got a lot of survivability to avoid being killed and stuff like that. Druid. Now, Druid is a weird one. They have a lot of CC, they have very good CC, consistent CC that can be spammed, such as Cyclone, Bash, Incap Roar, Roots and stuff like that, Entangling Roots. They have a lot of CC to offer. Damage-wise, they aren't the best. They aren't going to be up there competing with like Warlock damage or anything like that. They do a fair, decent amount of damage, I'm not going to lie, but it is very much through dots. So your Moonfire and Sunfire. Now, a lot of the damage can come from your Star Surges as well, but obviously you're going to need multiple global cooldowns to actually get this damage off, and it's quite easy to recognize when you're in danger against a Boomkin, because they'll glow like, you know, the moon is literally outside your bedroom window. They'll kind of glow that brightly that you'll notice it. So the damage isn't crazy. The damage I feel is just right in terms of Boomkin, but I might be biased because I play Boomkin. Feral is, again, very good because it relies on bleeds and stuff like that, like Assassination Rogue. So, again, I feel like the damage is in a sweet spot for Druids. Flexibility, you are very flexible. You have a lot of utility to use. You can heal your other teammates. You can disarm. You can root teammates. Your forms of CC are amazing. You can, do a lot to disrupt the enemy team, and that can be very utilised in an arena setting and in PvE as well. Survivability, you are just passively very tanky when you go into bear form, and you have your own sort of heal if you are, spec'd into the right sort of thing. So you are passively tanky, and you constantly are healing yourself pretty much throughout this expansion. You're frenzy regenning like 32% of your HP per time you click it, and you've got 2 of these on demand. One that is a automatic proc that you can have every minute, and the other is when you are in bear form, and that is like a 30-second cooldown, I believe. So you have 64% of your HP just sort of stored as backup in case you need them heals. Shaman. Shaman has gone on a bit of a downslope in this recent patch. CC-wise, you only have Hex, Incap Totem, couple roots and stuff. Not the best. Damage can be very bursty. Vesper Totem, I'm looking at you. It's insane. It one-shot my healer from, 70% today, and it's just... You can't do anything about it. He TP'd. He put the Vesper Totem behind a wall, and then brought out the Vesper totem on top of our healer, and our healer died. It was that simple. We couldn't kill the Vesper, like, quick enough. And it's one of them things. So damage can be insane, but it's a lot of bursting moments where, kind of like a mage, you'll see a lot of burst damage come through, and then it's just very negligible. You're not sort of worrying about it for the rest of the time. Flexibility, you have some decent off healing, you have some decent peels with your totems, so Earth Grab totem, hexes and stuff like that. But generally there's not a lot of flexibility in your gameplay. It's going to be very much a setup based DPS and stuff like that. Survivability, you do have one big cooldown, which is your astral shift. This is very much going to be keeping you alive throughout one of the big goes and stuff like that. Apart from that, you don't have much else in terms of like big cooldowns to trade, but the utility of totems can be used, such as Earthen Wall Totem, Healing Tide Totem and stuff like that for survivability. These are for Resto Shamans. But, you know, there is quite a bit of survivability through your totems as it is. Monks, I don't want to talk about them. CC-wise, they have a couple of CCs. They have In-Cap and they have Leg Sweep. Leg Sweep being the one that they will kill you in. Damage is stupid. They're doing nothing or they're one-shotting you. There is no in-between. And that's kind of what makes monks good at the moment. It can be so explosive and volatile that it's unpredictable. You can't trade something for it because you don't necessarily know if you're going to die to it. You could be 100% HP and drop to 0 in 1 second. Like, that's how crazy monks are in damage at the moment. Flexibility, your playstyle isn't going to be going drastically, like, to and from different ones. It's going to be very much, you run in, you press leg sweep, you press your Zwen images, and you spin to win. You're a Beyblade, pretty much, and that's all your class is. Yeah, there's not a lot of flexibility when it comes to mage. It's very much hit and run style, in my opinion. So, yeah. Survivability, you are very squishy. Now, Touch of Karma is on a small cooldown, as well as Diffuse Magic. You have your teleportation and stuff like that. But ultimately, you aren't the tankiest class. And if you get caught out in a bad situation, you're probably dead, to be honest. You're probably dead. Demon Hunter. Now, Demon Hunter CC is lacking-ish. They have a couple stuns as well as their Imprison. The Imprison obviously isn't going to be doing much, and they are for, like, short stuns for the most part. Their damage at the moment is very good. It is on the higher end, probably below monks and stuff like that, and just a little bit higher than warriors, I would say. But their damage is in a very strong spot at the moment. Flexibility-wise, you're not going to be doing much. You're going to run in, you're going to press your buttons, you're going to press absolutely everything, do as much damage as you can. If you win that arena, you win that arena because you pumped more damage than their Demon Hunter or something. It's one of them things. Or like your team got better CC on their healers, or, you know, something like that. You just pump damage as a Demon Hunter, that's kind of it. Survivability, you do have multiple uses of survival. You have Blur and Darkness, Netherwalk if you take it. But survivability-wise, I don't trust Darkness, as it is a 50% chance to avoid all damage. It's a 50-50. It's kind of a coin toss. You don't really want to rely on a coin toss to survive. So survivability is a bit lacking, but through your constant leeching of health and stuff, you are relatively tanky when in Metamorphosis. So, you know, there's good and bad for Demon Hunter, but the damage is definitely one of the better aspects. Finally, we have Death Knight. Death Knight at the moment are very tanky, I will say this. Their CC is very good. They have constant grips. They have death grips to bring you back in. They have Abomination Limb that just constantly brings you back in. They have constant slows with Chains of Ice. They have a silence now, I believe Unholy do. They have the stun with Syndragosa for Frost. So they have quite a fair amount of CC, and they're constantly dragging you back, slowing you and stuff like that. So it can be very tedious and obnoxious sometimes, but, you know, that's the form of CC they have. Damage-wise, they have gotten a buff recently, and their damage is kind of on the stronger side, in all honesty, if they get the uptime anyway. Demon Hunter damage is probably around the same as Death Knight damage at the moment, so that's to give you a fair sort of idea of where they're at, Death Knights. Flexibility-wise, you're not going to be seeing much difference. You're going to see a lot of Death Knights press A-bomb limb, try and keep you all there, group you up, stun all of you, and then send it with their other teammate. There isn't really much else that they can do, to be honest. Survivability-wise, they are tanky. They have Anti-Magic Zone, Anti-Magic Shell, they have Ice Blood Fortitude, they have constant heals with their Death Strikes, they have a lot of survivability into their kit, just as it is, like passively, they are very, very tanky as a class. So, best class in WoW, it's very tough to say. They're all very good at different things, but if you're looking at solid picks for overall survivability, flexibility, and stuff like that, Mage is probably one of the best ones. Mage and Druid, mainly because they can provide CC non-stop with Cyclone and Polymorph. Damage, again, is very good for, or very decent for the Druid. The Mage is more burst damage, so that's probably a downfall for the Mage. Flexibility, you have a lot of utility to use from the Mage in terms of their CC, and in terms of the Druid, you have a lot of off-heals, clones, CC that you can output as well. And they are both durable and can survive very long. So these are the sort of classes where I would think that they're very good overall. But if you're looking at raw damage and stuff like that, you're probably looking at Monk. If you're looking at Monk and Warlock, I should say. If you're looking at CC alone, you're probably looking at Rogue and Mage. Survivability-wise, I don't know, probably Death Knight at the moment is very just tanky and durable. So the best classes in WoW obviously are going to switch constantly throughout each patch. But if you're looking to start a new class or, you know, sort of have my opinion on who's at the top right now, I would definitely say Mage. I would definitely say Rogue if they come as a pair. But Mage, I think, is always going to be S tier, mainly because of the CC they provide. Druids are going to be S tier for the CC that they provide, but they're kind of not great in many other features of the game, unfortunately, because I play Drew. I would still say they're a very solid pick. It depends what you want. Obviously, this is my opinion, and I think Mage and Boomkin could be very, very good. Mage especially, and I'm always going to be biased for the Boomkins. But yeah, it all depends on what you think would make the best class in WoW, because some people might think monks are because they just have the most insane damage sometimes, which is fair. Some people might think warriors are because they can utilize their intervene, their rallying cry, war banner, you know, spell reflect. They have different answers for a lot of different things, and that's fine too. But in my opinion, mage is definitely at the best, or is the best class in WoW at the moment. Which is sad to say, because Mage has been the best class in WoW for probably, you know, over 10 years since the start of the game. Yeah, since the start of World of Warcraft, Mage has probably been the best class in the game, which is a bit weird. And that's not because, like, raw damage, it's mainly because of the CC that they can bring, and the flexibility in terms of they can peel for teammates, they can just kite other, like, enemies and stuff like that. But that is all for this week. Thank you all very much for listening. Do check out the Pig and Whistle social medias. They're all down in the description below. Check out the Patreon if you haven't already. And the Twitch and YouTube, constant stuff happening over there. Thank you all very much for listening once again. And go with Valor, friends. Goodbye all.